The Fantasy Sports Daily with Kyle Elfrink and Ray Flowers, Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't forget to use the promo code FSD20 for a 20% discount on the products over at fantasyguru.com.
It is that time again to sort through the bodies, the successes, the destruction, the numbers. We welcome you in on a Monday to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by fantasyguru.com. Kyle Elfrink and Ray Flowers with you. And yes, it is a Monday. Just a few things to go through as we escape another weekend of NFL and fantasy and DFS fun. A lot to come your way over the next hour. We will go game by game and number by number to give you all of our thoughts on what went down on Sunday. And we'll get you a preview of Monday Night Football. Ryan Clifford set to join us with his thoughts on the DFS showdown between Denver and Buffalo. Ray, I brought this up last week. It has totally been true thus far. I said you could not dream up 4 worse matchups in prime time for the NFL. So we had the Bears and the Panthers, 16-13. We had the Colts and the Patriots, 10-6.
Wow.
We had the Jets and the Raiders, 16-12.
Yikes.
And tonight, Ray, the Broncos and the Bills. Will we get a game tonight, you think?
Well, I mean, it's I think tonight, let's have the finger crossed, at least one side, right? I don't know, man. This, and a lot of people are talking about it now. I think as each week goes on, it becomes a little more obvious that there's a bunch of crappy offenses and a bunch of teams that don't really do anything on that side of the football. And so we're trudging through a 2023 season. It's not necessarily been exciting from a football perspective or necessarily from a fantasy perspective either.
Let me ask you this. One solution has been, why don't we flex everything for primetime games? Like we have that for Sunday Night Football. Like the idea that NBC, if it's a bad matchup, which I thought last night constituted that, but they chose not to flex.
Well, Aaron Rodgers was on the sidelines, Kyle, getting a chance to talk to Davante Adams. So.
And they only get so many flex opportunities over the course of the year. So I guess they're saving them for later. But the idea of flexing Thursday and Monday and Sunday, Ray, would I think that just kind of makes it silly to even have a schedule if you're going to allow that kind of stuff.
Well, I hope they don't do it because that would really screw my schedule up, the way I put the articles together each week and everything like that. I mean, and you and I touched on this on Friday after we were discussing that Thursday Night Football game. People are going to watch regardless. Why put a good game on in prime time when people are watching anyway? You want to put all the crappy games in prime. It's counterintuitive, but you want to put all the crap-ass games in prime time because people are going to watch it anyway. So, the casual fan, you're not picking them up. But at this point in time, is anyone really a casual fan? I think people just love football.
Well, and the Sunday flex, they only look at Sunday games. And let's say it's an early afternoon game, they flex it to the evening. That's not a huge alteration for a team. And they have to make that decision, I think, 10 to 14 days out. But flexing like a Sunday game to a Thursday is gigantic. You can't do that. And even flexing a Sunday to a Monday can kind of get into a messy situation. So I don't know. Maybe they just have to do a better job of predicting things. Right? Maybe they should hire you and I to predict how a season will go, because you and I are damn near flawless with predicting things in August that are totally true come November 13th.
Yeah, you predicted the success of the Giants last year and their fall this year as an example. So perfect. Exactly.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of the Giants, before we dig into this weekend, my favorite stat coming out of Sunday, absolute favorite, is that Lamar Jackson in the past 3 weeks, the last 3 games, has produced as many touchdowns in 3 games as Tommy DeVito did yesterday. How about that? Ray, Tommy DeVito, 2 touchdown passes, didn't run for any, but 2 touchdowns, versus Lamar Jackson, Ray, who has created 2 touchdowns in the last 3 weeks. 2! And the thing is, the Ravens are scoring, Ray, but Lamar Jackson, isn't involved. 2 rushing, passing, whatever. 2 touchdowns in 3 weeks for Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, and he gave me a chance, to Mr. DeVito, by the way, to win in my Dynasty League matchup this week after I lost Daniel Jones and Justin Fields is not playing. So, yes, I tweeted this out yesterday, Sunday morning at SiriusXM Fantasy when I'm there, answering questions and all that. I tweeted out the fact that, Lamar Jackson has 1 game of 240 passing yards. He fell below that mark again yesterday. There were 13 guys heading into this weekend who are averaging 240 passing yards a game. He has 1 game like that all season long. You're talking about the lack of touchdowns. He yesterday, was saved by interceptions being called back, and he had a pick six. There was a lot. Could have been even worse than it was yesterday for Lamar Jackson. And were and are people that are concerned about playing him. And at the end of the day, he's still a top 5 quarterback. I mean, that's, the running saves him. But that offense, Jeff Mans has talked about it a lot in his show. That offense it's different. And some people are excited about the changes they've made. But really, it's no better than in years past. And Lamar continues to be up and down on a weekly basis.
Obviously, we'll talk about that Ravens-Browns game. Kind of a shocker that the Browns, down 2 touchdowns, were able to come back. Elsewhere in this Week 10 recap, we will talk about all the excitement that the Chargers and the Lions gave us late on Sunday afternoon. And speaking of excitement, late day on Sunday, Dak Prescott. Check out the run that Dak and Lamb are on. We will get to that. CJ Stroud to Noah Brown. Is it really a thing? It might be after 2 straight weeks. We'll talk about the San Francisco 49er defense manhandling the Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence. Of course, we saw the return of Kyler Murray. Ray and I will give our takes on what we saw there. TJ Hockenson is reaching new heights, double-digit catches in Week 10. Let's see, he had 11 catches. The Jets, we were just talking about that. The Jets' run of futility, 11 quarters without a touchdown. Yikes. And, of course, we got to talk about the New England Patriots. Will Mac Jones ever be back? Or is it done after yesterday in Indianapolis? So, Ray, let's begin our journey through Week 10. Let's have some fun here. Let's talk over the games. As always, people can comment in the YouTube room. If you've got any questions, any thoughts, we are happy to help you with anything that pops on there. I guess, Ray, we'll start with Baltimore-Cleveland, kind of a decent spot to go to. I thought of this yesterday, and maybe it's already happening. I will admit I haven't really journeyed into the world of NFL breakdowns yet today. But I'm guessing people are now trying to tell us that Deshaun Watson's back. I heard some of that yesterday. Like, oh, man, Deshaun Watson, look at that second half, and look what the Browns did. Ray, Deshaun Watson's not back. I'm watching this game. It's great, 14 of 14, but back for Deshaun Watson is like top 2, top 3 in fantasy football. He ain't back. He's fine. Well, and maybe he's fine. He had an ankle brace on after the game yesterday, but Cleveland got the win. Huge win, but Ray, in that game, it's nothing really Deshaun Watson did. It was a team effort. It was a defensive effort. I thought the Ravens kind of blew it. Good to see, but for fantasy players, I'm not buying this write-up that Deshaun Watson has rediscovered his form of 3 or 4 years ago.
It's really interesting, isn't it? I think this is a great example of how players, because a lot of people like to think that players are great or players suck. Right? And it doesn't matter where they are, what they're doing, they're great or they suck. Isn't this a prime example of everything around you matters a ton? Because like you're saying, a couple of years ago when he was throwing for 4,800 yards and 30 touchdowns, he was a dominant elite quarterback on the field and in the fantasy space. Now he's with the Browns, and the Browns are going to run it for 150 yards a game. And they want the quarterback to throw it 32 times a week. And he's kind of just a guy. And watching the game, I mean, it's fantastic they won. They came back 33-31 to beat the Ravens. But I wasn't impressed by anything he did. I mean, he had a couple of nice runs, I guess, to escape the pocket, use athleticism, but he didn't elevate anyone. He made some bad passes. He just doesn't, he's not exuding, for me, Kyle, when I'm watching him, he's not exuding the confidence he used to. And maybe that's, me picking on things, but I totally agree with you. He's not back. Yeah. They won a football game and they're 6-3 and they're starting to build momentum here toward the playoffs. But he is not back at all to where he was a couple of years ago.
And okay, 14 of 14. What does that mean that he did in the first half? 6 for 20. Yeah. I mean, let's not get carried away. It's 213 yards. It's like this is nothing. So I wanted to address that off the top. The other situation here in this game, Ray, from a fantasy perspective, a lot of questions about Keaton Mitchell. Last week, and he was a big pickup. People spent money, people stuck him in their lineup, or maybe they got him and they left him on their bench because of the matchup against Cleveland. I guess everybody's right to an extent, Ray. I feel better about where I stand than where the other people stand. I mean, we said it last week. Where's the work? Where's it going to come from? Can he get anything more than a max of 10 touches? He didn't come close to 10 touches yesterday. Ray is holding up the 4 fingers. But, Ray, he kind of had the Devon Achane kind of performance. True. A few touches, but big touches when he got the chance. Got a touchdown. He had 71 yards on his first 2 touches. and then nothing the rest of the game from this Ravens offense.
Yeah, we posted a clip on YouTube, youtube.com/@ElitePlusNetwork. We posted a clip, you and I talking about Mitchell last week, and one of the users commented, "Don't remove this because you're going to be wrong in the end." And I'm like, okay.
Well, repost it then.
Yeah. Well, he had 4 touches. Okay. And this is what we run into all the time in the fantasy space. People look at a highlight or they look at the box score where there's a touchdown and they think everything's fine. He played 13 snaps.
Yeah.
He saw the ball 4 times. The first time he touched the ball, if I'm not mistaken, he ripped off the touchdown run, right? So it's like, okay, so he goes out and does this dynamic thing. And what does the coaching staff do? They don't play him.
Yeah.
What do? They don't give him the ball. Oh, by the way, he had 39-yard touchdown run. His carry total was 3. His actual yardage total for the game was 34. He lost 5 yards on his other 2 carries. So, I mean, yeah, if you played him, I guess you got to win because he got in the end zone. But 13 snaps and 4 touches ain't going to work, and that's where he was yesterday.
And Gus Edwards is still the guy in the green zone. He had a touchdown. He didn't do anything, but he's the guy that when they're inside the 10, inside the 5, they're going to go with. And if it's not Gus, it's probably Lamar Jackson. So that's working against somebody like Mitchell. Additionally, I'll throw out, and maybe this is why he didn't get work. He dropped a pass in the end zone.
Yeah.
And that was something that kind of hurt a lot of guys yesterday. There were some bad dropped touchdowns. Tyler Boyd, Mike Evans had a horrendous drop in the end zone that a guy of his ilk should never be. So it happens, but Mitchell could have had a massive game and everybody would have been crowing, but I still look at touches and Ray brings up 13 snaps. If you're cool with that, which you shouldn't be, then go for it. If that's what you paid for and that's what you expect, I guess you can say, oh, I only expect 13 snaps a week. Well, then you got what you wanted. But I don't think that's what's anybody's believing in when they picked up Keaton Mitchell. So again, 33 to 31, the final score there. Big win for Cleveland. Baltimore kind of, when they lose, they kind of crap the bed. They've done that a few times this year. We were talking about Deshaun Watson in Houston, Ray. Let's go to the Texans. They're one of the big stories coming out of Sunday because they go on the road to Cincinnati and they need a last-second field goal to win, but they kind of dominated this game. They had some defensive difficulties late. Cincinnati kind of opened things up. C.J. Stroud had a very rare interception that kept the Bengals in the game. Eventually, though, the Texans win it, and Stroud was not as great as he was in Week 9, Ray, but he was still very good. The fantasy numbers were pulled back, from 470 yards to like 360. But the thing that shocked me, I may have been right about Mitchell in Baltimore. Ray, I got to say I was wrong about Noah Brown in Houston. I kind of said, one off, whatever, who cares about Noah Brown? He turned it up another notch in Week 10. He was at 153 yards in Week 9. Ray, he went for 172 in that game against the Bengals on Sunday.
Yeah, and it's tough because even if you picked him up after his 100-yard effort last time out, right? Did you have him active yesterday? I think we had him ranked like 39th at the wide receiver position. So maybe some people had him active. Now everyone's going to have him active. We got a couple of things going on, though. Let's be clear about this. One, Nico Collins was out, right? So that's a huge negative. He's not out there soaking up targets and all that. Number 2, Tank Dell still had 14 targets. 14 targets there. He played 16 more snaps. He ran 7 more routes. So as great as Brown has been, there's likely some pullback there because of the guys around him. And, Robert Woods in his first game back should have had a touchdown, but he stepped on the end line before he caught the pass. So the bottom line is Stroud is really good. The offense is operating at a very high level. Singletary looked pretty damn good after Dameon Pierce hadn't done anything all season long. And like you said, the Texans really did dominate the majority of this game, even though they barely emerged with the victory late. Noah Brown, Collins is back, Dell is there, Woods is there. I'm not going to sit here and say we ignore the last 2 weeks because that'd be dumb. But I can't anticipate Noah Brown, catching 5 balls for 100 yards every week. I don't think there's enough volume there for him to consistently do what he's been doing the last couple.
Yeah, Henry in the chat room says he actually chose Stroud over Lamar Jackson, and that's a difficult decision. I would have looked at both those guys as QB1s going into the week, and I probably would have given the edge to Lamar Jackson, but obviously Henry made the better choice by going with Stroud. And it brings up the question, Ray, for a lot of people, C.J. Stroud is their backup quarterback in fantasy. They may have a Lamar Jackson or a Joe Burrow or whomever it is. We talked about this last week, you and I think you were much more of Stroud's a QB1. I was not. I kind of said high in QB2. I was looking at the schedule for CJ Stroud, and the reason I'm going to say QB2, and you can totally disagree with me, he does have good matchups. Like in the coming weeks, what are we looking at here? 2 games against Tennessee, Arizona, Indianapolis, Denver. Those are good matchups. He also has games against the Jets and the Browns.
Yeah.
I'm probably not starting him in those games. Now, I could be totally wrong, and I'm talking, 5-6 weeks into the future. We'll have to see how things turn out. But the reason I still have Stroud as like more of a QB2, Ray, is I kind of look at certain matchups or being on the road and say, I'd rather have somebody else. Where for me, a QB1 is like, I'm rolling with that guy pretty well every week. I don't know if Stroud's reached that level. Now, again, you were there last week, so I assume you're still there this week.
Well, yeah, but, and he got the rushing. That was the thing we talked about last week, too. Kind of my trepidation is that he's not really a running quarterback. Had a rushing touchdown, but he ran for 8 yards.
Yeah.
I think that, this is a team in Houston that's playing well. Obviously, the coach has helped. Obviously, the quarterback has helped. They're gelling. They're moving in the right direction. They're winning games. They're not a championship level team yet. They're not, but they're building. And I think Stroud, we talked about this a lot last week with Bryce Young and Stroud. They're in different hemispheres right now. They're just in different hemispheres. Stroud is calm. He's cool in the pocket. He looks like Deshaun Watson used to look, minus the running part. Like he just seems like he's always in control, right? He's scrambling around. He's still feathering passes into. I'm very impressed. Can he be a QB1 the rest of the way? He can, but as you noted, those difficult matchups, especially as we get closer to the fantasy playoffs, they're going to be a test for the youngster.
Got 2 more things with Houston. One's in the backfield. One's a statement from our buddy Rob Povey in the chat room. He's in a spot where Schultz is like his tight end, Dalton Schultz, and Tank Dell's one of his receivers. And the question of starting 2. And Ray, this is something that we run into midseason, after the halfway point of, surprises occur, and they're pleasant surprises. Dalton Schultz, you draft him as your tight end 1. I'm a believer, hey, if you draft 1 tight end, that's your tight end. So for me, Dalton Schultz is starting every week. And then all of a sudden, Tank Dell's kind of becoming a thing. Ray, in that situation or others like them, I think you can roll with both. I'm not looking at Houston and saying they're a great offense. Obviously, they're not a bad offense. But this is one of those situational things that kind of changes over the course of the year. I got to roll with Dalton Schultz because he's a decent enough tight end every week. And Tank Dell, hell, what was it, 14 targets?
14 targets.
And I know it's not perfect to rely that much on Houston. I'm in a league where the way things have worked with injuries, with bad moves on the waiver wire, with being a 3 wide receiver, 2 flex league. I'm in a league, Ray, where I've got Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, and 2-3 weeks ago, Zack Moss, all in my start. And I didn't plan it that way. I didn't draft that way. It just kind of felt, and I had to start them. They were the best option. So it's not a perfect world, but if I'm rolling with Dell and Schultz, assuming the matchups are okay, I've got no major issue with having 2 Texans in my lineup every week.
Well, I think that you don't draft a team that way, right? But once you, like you said, once you start get going, you make moves on the waiver wire, you make a trade, and maybe, now I would say this, I wouldn't feel comfortable with Kittle and Ayuk. I wouldn't feel comfortable with Kelsey and Rice. Like, I just don't like the combination because of multiple factors. 1, weather can be an issue. 2, if Stroud goes down with an injury, what does the offense look like? Now you got multiple guys going. 3, what if they have a game where they have success on the ground, they don't throw the ball that much? And 4, what if one of the guys stars and takes all the looks from the other guy? So I think the answer of, do you play Schultz? Like you said, you have to play Schultz. I don't think you're doing better at tight end. The question about Tank Dell is really who else you have. And maybe there are scenarios where it's the best play this week. So, we have the rankings over at fantasyguru.com. I think we had Dell ranked 19th or 20th this week at wide receiver. So we were very bullish on him. And, the results were good. 6 catches for 56 yards in the score. Didn't have the huge game, but he did have the 14 targets. I think it's less than ideal to be playing the tight end and wide receiver from the same team, but I think in some scenarios it does work.
And then the backfield, Devin Singletary. Hey, folks, if you had him on your bench and you missed out, what do you have, over 160 yards and a touchdown? Do not blame yourself. Like, Ray, Devin Singletary has been in a coma all year. He's been terrible. I mentioned 160 yards on Sunday. I don't think he'd even topped 65 total yards in a game this year before yesterday. He had 0 touchdowns. But I bring him up, Ray, you say, oh, well, who cares? 1 game. you think he's the guy, even when Dameon Pierce is ready to go? Pierce hasn't shown much either, and at least Singletary has one game he can point to and say, well, look what I did against the Bengals. I think there could be a changing of the guard there in the Texans backfield.
Yeah, Devin Singletary's never been known as a guy who runs people over, right? Let's be honest about that. But he had 3 yards of carry after contact yesterday, which is a big number. And he looked good. He looked explosive. He looked shifty. I think it's really difficult because I think we have a scenario here very similar to the Steelers in that the quote-unquote backup, Warren Singletary, brings a different dynamic than the starter, Harris Pierce, right? They're different stylistic players. The backup is more exciting, more flashy, more capable of contributing in the passing game. The starter is more the guy that will move the pile, they get the short yardage work, that kind of thing. I think that before yesterday, whoever it was in the Texans backfield that was starting was running, 14 times for 41 yards. Like no one was having success running the football. Then we saw the effort yesterday with Singletary. I could see a scenario where that could switch, to your point, where Singletary becomes the 1A and Pierce becomes the 1B. But because they bring such different skill sets to the table, I think the usage on a weekly basis based upon where they are on the football field, are they at the 26-yard line, are they at the 4-yard line? The matchup with the opponent, how good are they against the run? Do they need to spread the field out? Are they going more north-south? I think that's a very difficult situation as we sit here today to say definitively that Devin Singletary is now the starter for this team. Could be, but I don't think Dameon Pierce is going to go away, and we're going to see 22 touches a week for Singletary and 3 for Pierce.
Hey, quick thought on the Bengals side. The 27 points are fairly misleading, I think, here. They didn't play all that well. Joe Burrow was fine. It was good to see Jamar Chase. He was cleared to play, had a big moment, pretty big game when it was all said and done. Joe Mixon, Ray, we are now 0 for 9 on the season of getting him to 100 yards rushing, and we're actually 0 for 9 of getting him to even 90 yards rushing. This has been a slog of a year for Joe Mixon, hasn't it?
And every running back carry went to Joe Mixon yesterday. Yeah, I mean, it has been a slog. And the offense has been uneven, right? It started out terribly. Burrow wasn't at 100%. T. Higgins has been in and out of the lineup. He missed the game again yesterday. Jamar Chase had the 124 and the touchdown, but he, only had 6 targets. And I have to think that has to do with his back, right? So I don't think they've been firing on all cylinders. It looked like everything was moving in the right direction. And then honestly, Tyler Boyd happened yesterday. You talked about drops. Tyler Boyd, and I hate to do this because it's, fourth quarter play is the same as the first quarter play, blew the game.
Yeah.
He caught that ball in the end zone with under 2 minutes left. The Bengals win that football game, I think. So then everything looks different too. We can forgive Mixon for not being great. Now they're 6-3 versus 5-4. Joe Mixon's value in the fantasy game is he's the starting running back. He's the only running back that sees the field, that touches the ball in an offense that should be very effective. He has been extremely boring, if not poor, on a per-touch basis.
Big win for the Houston Texans. They've now got visions, perhaps, of the playoffs. And Ray, they may have visions of an AFC South title, which is crazy to think about. Jacksonville just gets stomped on Sunday by the San Francisco 49ers. And Christian McCaffrey, the TD streak is over. They did have him in late. Right? I mean, they're up 4.5 touchdowns. And they're trying to get McCaffrey in the end zone late, Ray. Mm-hmm. I don't own McCaffrey anywhere, but I'm looking at that. If I own McCaffrey, he had a good game. 22 touches, like 150 yards, the usual. He just didn't have the touchdown. But they have him in late there, Ray, trying to get this record. And considering his history and his importance to the 49ers, I'll just say I thought that was rather foolish of Kyle Shanahan to try and keep that record. I get it. And personally, it's a cool record, but that came off rather stupid, even though McCaffrey didn't appear to get hurt late.
Yeah, doing things for the sake of the record book outside the bounds of the normalcy of the game, which is what this was. They were just feeding him the ball late. Dumb. You're up 34-3 in a game that's over. Dumb. And Jeff Mann said it on Twitter. He sent out, if CMC tears his ACL there, San Francisco fans should riot. You're trying to win the Super Bowl and you got this guy out here in a 31-point lead in the fourth quarter of a meaningless game. Whatever. Whatever. The Niners, like you said, I think my big takeaway wasn't that, though. That would be the biggest storyline of all time if he got hurt. It was the fact the Jaguars, like you said, they got stomped. They just got stomped in their home yard. And, for me, the Trevor Lawrence experiment, it's not good. Mm-hmm. He was horrible 2 years ago. He was ascending last year. And this year, he looks more like the guy from 2 years ago. He's got a touchdown pass a game and a turnover a game. He's doing nothing.
I saw the number. It's 9 games into this season. Yeah. He's got 2 games with more than 1 touchdown throw. Yeah. That is shot. He was supposed to ascend, Ray, into like the top 6, top 7 amongst quarterbacks this year. He's nowhere near that halfway through the year.
And if I'm not mistaken, he's got 10 turnovers in 9 games if you add up his interceptions and his fumbles. And, the highlight of his game yesterday was chasing down dude on that pickup and the fumble and tackling him in the end zone late. It's bad. It's really bad. And it's, the Jaguars are 6-3 and their playoff aspirations and all that. And from a fantasy perspective, though, Trevor Lawrence is doing nothing. Calvin Ridley is doing nothing. The offense is stagnating way too frequently. And, Trevor Lawrence, like you said, Trevor Lawrence wasn't supposed to be good. He was supposed to be great. Still time for him to get there and all that. But right now, he's a difficult start right now. Let's just call it. If you're in a 12-team league, he's a difficult start right now, even with the fact that, we've got teams on bye and injuries and all that. We had him as a QB1 in week number 10 against the Niners, right there at the bottom of it. So I told a lot of people, hey, look, I'm in. They had an extra week off, time to figure this out. They looked like ass. He is now a certain, I'm not sure if I should start him player moving forward.
Well, they're still a game up on Houston. They're 6-3, but again, it's a misleading 6-3. Like I'm looking at this, Ray. One of the reasons they've managed this record is defensive turnovers. They are number 1 in the NFL in forcing turnovers, and so that has allowed them to survive a rather ordinary offensive season. And I say ordinary, it's fine if you're an ordinary offense. I kind of think Baltimore is a pretty ordinary offense, but they can certainly do some damage in the playoffs. But, Ray, the Jaguars, with what they have on that side of the football, they're not supposed to be ordinary. Right. They're supposed to be like top 5. Right now, they're 15th in points. I'm shocked by the lack of throwing. Mm-hmm. They're right in the middle for pass attempts this year. You mentioned Ridley and Christian Kirk. Just to revisit an argument that was like everywhere in the preseason, 9 games in, here's what we've got. Ridley, 35 catches. Christian Kirk, 49. Christian Kirk, 624 yards. Ridley, 471. Kirk's also got him beaten on touchdowns 3-2. Ray, Christian Kirk is the number 1 here. Calvin Ridley disappears for entire halves of football with this Jaguars team.
Yeah, and this again, I think it's another example too. Remember, Matt Ryan sucks. When Matt Ryan was throwing the ball to Calvin Ridley, he was catching 6 passes a week.
That was pre-Arthur Smith, though.
Yeah, true. Fair point. Calvin Ridley has played a good game and a half this year. That's in terms of his statistical output. Christian Kirk is the only consistent guy, and I say that knowing that we had another 4 catches for Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram doesn't score touchdowns, and he had 12 yards yesterday. The most consistent pass catcher on this team is Christian Kirk, and it's not close. And I think that I want to say the majority of people said Ridley over Kirk, or they said it's basically a toss-up. Well, like you said, 9 games through, this has not even been close to a toss-up. It's been a whitewashing. Kirk is.
I feel like Ridley, Ray, was loved, like a top 30 pick, 35. I don't feel Kirk was anywhere near that in the preseason.
We definitely, over at fantasyguru.com, definitely had Ridley higher. No doubt about it. Ridley's the cover boy of our magazine this year, or our preseason product. So there's no debate. We had him higher. So I'm not giving myself.
Everybody did. I don't think everybody was leaning Ridley over Kirk.
But it's like 7 of 8 weeks, Kirk has scored a touchdown or caught 6 passes. It's not in it. So it's not even just the numbers that you referenced are bigger overall. He's there every week. The Ridley thing, I think this partly we got a problem with how they're utilizing him. Partly we also have the issue that we have to address. Missing a year of football is not easy. Mm-hmm. It's just, and we see it time and time and time again. And we always want to think this next guy, he'll be the guy that refutes. It doesn't really happen, Kyle.
Yeah. Back to San Francisco, Brock Purdy, back to the Purdy-rific ways. 3 touchdowns, no picks. He was solid. McCaffrey doing his thing. Ayuk, by the way, Brandon Ayuk, first touchdown since week 1. Deebo Samuel was out there. He had a rushing touchdown. Kittle had a big game. Defense was dominant. That's a perfect San Francisco game. And how quickly a story can change. Before yesterday, it's like, oh my God, they're on the cusp of falling apart. Well, now nobody's saying that about San Francisco. It is a week-to-week league. Next week, if they lose, then it'll be the heavens are falling yet again. Which leads us right to the Dallas Cowboys, where, at multiple points over the course of a year, everybody falls in love with Dallas, and then they fall out of love. And, Dallas went to San Francisco a few weeks back and got, embarrassed on national TV. And it's like, same old paper Cowboys. And now, Ray, they're trending up again. Here come the Cowboys. And first things first, this Giants team is dreadful. They're just bad. At least the Jets, who are bad, Ray, they have a really good defense so they can stay in games. The Giants don't. Their defense is just there. And their offense is pitiful. It's dead. It's finished.
Well, they have a JV quarterback. It's their third string guy.
They have a JV, if not a freshman level quarterback, Ray.
Yeah.
2 touchdowns for Tommy DeVito, 89 yards, I think. And so
ran for 41.
Yeah. I look at it though, Ray. It's like, they're getting crushed in this game. What was it at half? It was 28-0 at half. Yeah. So like, you're going to be like, oh, they're going to throw and throw and throw. Despite that, only 27 pass attempts. They
couldn't get first downs. They couldn't.
I don't want to talk. Here's what I'll say about the Giants. This Saquon Barkley thing deserves watching. He is a pissed off dude, and I get it. We touched on this last week. They're going to ask him to handle the rock and carry it 20 plus times and then say, see ya. We don't want to pay you. Thanks for getting your body beat up as you go into free agency. So we'll follow that thing. On the Cowboys side, Ray, let's talk. They're much more interesting.
Yeah.
Dak Prescott is in an explosive run. I'm trying to, I got to look this up. Has anybody had a 3-game run where they've produced 12 total touchdowns like Dak Prescott's doing right now? 3 games. He had 5 of them yesterday. He is sharp as a tack. Now, again, we've seen this and it doesn't hold up, but Dak Prescott has looked like a superstar in the month of November.
Yeah, they have 89 points in 2 games against the Giants, by the way. Pretty good. I think that this is really interesting, the Dak Prescott thing, because he did not look good at the start of the season. And it looked like he was going to be more of a game manager, which he has been at points in his career, versus the guy that's exciting in the fantasy space, which he's been at points in his career. Of late, he's been that guy. Now, some of it's the competition. The Giants, again, are awful. But as you noted, he's balling out. CeeDee Lamb is setting records. The offense looks great through the air, but on the ground, we got an issue. So it's rare that you see a team that's ascending and putting all these points up on the board and all this fireworks, and nothing's really happening with the guy that was drafted to be an RB1.
It's funny with Lamb. I think it was a few weeks ago, you and me, and I said this, not Ray. I said this. I go, CeeDee Lamb's good, but he's not great. He's not that A.J. Brown, Tyreek. He must have been following us here on Fantasy Sports Daily, because Ray, it's bonkers. The last 4 weeks, 41 catches, 517 yards and 3 touchdowns. He's bonkers. Had another huge effort. But the 2 other things with it, Brandon Cooks. Do you care? Like, Ray, Brandon Cooks is a name we know. He had more yards yesterday against the Giants than he had all season. I don't care. Now, I didn't care about Noah Brown much either last week.
Right.
I don't care about Brandon Cooks. Am I wrong on that one?
I don't think you're wrong. I think this week we had him like 38 at wide receiver, which, was mostly about the matchup versus Cooks, like you said. We know Brandon Cooks. He can have big games. Games like this, I'd be stunned. I'd fall off my chair if he had another game like this all season, probably the rest of his career, right? They're kind of searching for it. They got Michael Gallup and Brooks and, Tolbert here. So they're kind of searching for that too, but they haven't really found it. The two's kind of been Ferguson, as we talked about last week. And he got in the end zone yet again this week. I don't think it's something to get excited about with Cooks. I think the problem is someone in your league likely will. Mm-hmm. So, if you had him on your bench, great. Let's look at matchups. Let's break down some tape. If he's on the waiver wire and you're thinking about, I'm going to go spend, 25% of my budget to add this guy, I wouldn't be making that mistake, Kyle.
Brown over Cooks for the rest of the season?
I'd say yes.
I would too.
I'm not in the zone of, I really want to start either one with confidence at this point.
Let's go to this backfield. I was driving around over the weekend, and I won't name names, but a certain analyst, Ray, said that Tony Pollard has a better chance at 3 touchdowns in this game than he does at 0.
Oh.
Which it's a fun thing to say, and at the moment, Ray, I didn't say, oh my God, this is the craziest thing my ears have ever heard. I got the point he was making.
Right.
Like, this was a game where if you're Tony Pollard and you've struggled for 4 or 5 weeks, okay, let's get right. Let's do it. Mm-hmm. And Ray, they scored 49 points. And if anybody had told anybody else, hey, the Cowboys are going to score 49, you think Tony Pollard's getting in the end zone? They're like, hell yeah. 95% of the respondents, yeah, he'll get nothing, Ray. 55 scoreless yards. It's backbreaking. We say it all the time, when a team scores that much and one of your guys doesn't even get involved. He doesn't. Rico Dowdle was in there late, as he should have been. There's no reason to have Pollard out there in the third or fourth quarter. But Dowdle had a better game, which is just sand in the face of a Pollard owner after yesterday.
Yeah, Pollard, by the way, first time all season, he didn't catch a pass. So they scored 49 points, didn't catch a pass, ran for 55 yards. He played 3 times as many snaps as Dowdle. He ran 3 times as many routes as Dowdle and did nothing. And I think that this is, we were taught, this has kind of been a theme unintentionally for the show today, that everyone wanted Pollard to get the ball more. Ezekiel Elliott sucks. Ezekiel Elliott sucks. Ezekiel Elliott sucks. They give the ball more to Pollard, and what happens? Nothing. No, he's looked worse. The production's been obviously worse. He's done nothing. And we're to the point, like, he scored 2 touchdowns in week 1. Then he had 32 touches in week 2. Then he ran for 120 yards in week 3. Boom, gone. And we said it at the time, through 3 weeks, that he was either first or second in the league in touches. And both of us were like, whoa, this is a guy that had to get pulled out after 2 snaps in a row last year. Like, what's going on? And I don't know how much of that has to do with this, but he has not produced. He's not got in the end zone. He's got 4 catches for 14 yards the last 3 games. He's not involved in this offense other than getting 3.5 yards a carry, and he's killing people because, you look at this matchup and they're going to produce, they're going to score, they're going to have a big game. I wouldn't have said 3 touchdowns, but I would have said, yeah, you're starting him as a running back 1 this week, and it just didn't happen yet again.
Cowboys leading all of football in week 10 with the 49 points, and of course with no Kansas City, Miami, and Philadelphia. We needed some points, so we got it from the Cowboys. We also got it from the Lions and the Chargers. That was a fun game, and I'm blown away, Ray. I mean, the Chargers constantly. This is just they constantly lose these just rip your heart out games, and it's got to be maddening to be a Chargers fan. They lose again yesterday, 41-38, and it was the proverbial shootout that fantasy players love. Like Goff was Goff, Herbert was Herbert, Keenan Allen. I think it's now 8 games or something in his career with more than 10 catches. He did it again. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Probably the biggest takeaway here was what was going on in the Lions backfield, because we saw the return of David Montgomery. And the question was, Ray, would anything change from how Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs split work early in the season versus where we are in week 10? It was a little more Gibbs than maybe one would expect. I don't want to say that's the way it's going to be. This game was a shootout. This game was wide open, and, so there were a lot of plays, a lot of big. So I don't want to say that's the way it is, 50-50 between Gibbs and Montgomery. What I did see that's worth talking about is Jahmyr Gibbs, both of his touchdowns were from a yard out, which used to be the province, Ray, of David Montgomery, right? He's supposed. So that's probably the biggest, eyebrow-raising moment, is that Gibbs got both those short yardage gains when they were knocking on the door of the end zone.
Yeah, I was surprised by that. Now, going back to last week, I said I'd play David Montgomery over Gibbs. Technically, that was wrong. I also said I'd play both this week. Okay, so we were right in general. I think that what we saw yesterday, as you noted, was a real shootout game. And I think that there was a little, I'm not going to say concern, but let's get David Montgomery back and let him do some things. And I feel like next game will put more back on his plate. 38-25 snaps in Gibbs' advantage. 21 routes run to 11 in advantage of Gibbs. Now, Gibbs will continue to lap Montgomery in the route run department in the pass catching game. I believe that. I was surprised by the disparity in the snap count a little bit. And I think when you look at the way they were utilized, that was the biggest aha moment, because Montgomery could go out there and still, get the ball at the 1 yard line. He did get the ball in the green zone too. He didn't get in the end zone that way. But I don't think that we should take too much away from Gibbs getting short touchdowns. I think the takeaway is that both these guys are integral to this offense. They had tons of success without a massive open field aerial game, and they're both likely to be usable, just like Swift and Williams were last year.
Well, and there's that question, you're coming off a high ankle sprain like Montgomery is, are you truly fully healthy? Are we ready to go? And maybe there was some of that. A 75-yard touchdown run kind of answers a few of those questions, I think. I think we'll continue to see more and more, and I think that will trend back to being even. Maybe not. Maybe Gibbs will start to become the lead guy in Detroit's backfield, but I'm not ready to call it after yesterday and that victory against the Chargers. A lot of fun that game, 41-38. Kind of surprising you get 79 points and Sam Laporta wasn't really involved. Gerald Everett, by the way, if you missed it, he got a 0, but he had a back injury, so he left. I bring up those two tight ends, Ray, because I want to switch gears to Minnesota.
Okay.
The Vikings are flying high, 5 straight wins, all 5 without Justin Jefferson. And now 2 of them without Kirk Cousins. So sometimes a team can still win without the superstars. Final score in that game yesterday, 27-19. Minnesota came out guns a-blazing, and TJ Hockenson came out guns a-blazing. 10 catches in the first half. Now, he had only 1 in the second half, but 11 catches. And I was blown away, Ray. 71 catches already for TJ Hockenson. 71. And I think he's like at 130 through his first 20 games with the Vikings.
Yeah.
This guy, TJ Hockenson, Ray, has a very decent shot at over 100 catches this year, which usually that's Travis Kelce and nobody else. Hockenson may get there this year with this Vikings team.
Yeah, and I have Hockenson on a whole bunch of teams because I wasn't going to take Kelce and Hockenson kind of, he's sitting there in the 4th round. Let's go. The negative with him, and we saw this yesterday, he exploded yesterday for 10 yards a catch. Like, there's not a lot of yards after the catch here, and he's just safety valve. But, if you're catching 6 balls for 70 yards every week, that's a win in fantasy, even if you don't get in the end zone much. We saw the 134 and a touchdown yesterday. And, Dobbs is something, we talked about this when Dobbs was dealt to Minnesota. He loves throwing to the tight end. You saw it again yesterday. When you get Justin Jefferson back, the balancing act then becomes, is he a 660 guy, Hockenson, or is he a 980 guy? Because, Jefferson will draw the defense. True, but Jefferson's also going to draw 9 to 12 targets a week. So, you're kind of in that zone where I think that Hockenson's got a legit chance to catch 100 passes, like you said. He's a PPR monster. He's not a necessarily great non-PPR guy because he's not a huge red zone, green zone touchdown threat. But it's just a continuation of what, as you noted, has been a pretty remarkable season today.
Got to talk about Ty Chandler in this Vikings backfield. Now, Alexander Madison went to the tent. After the game, we heard, concussion protocol, that kind of stuff. But even before that, we saw a lot of Ty Chandler. And, Ray, we've seen nothing of Ty Chandler this season before yesterday. He's in his 2nd year, has done next to nothing with the Vikings. He's been whispered about on the periphery, of things. Cam Akers is out for the season. So, okay, Ty Chandler moves up the depth chart, but Ray, the expectation, Madison's the guy. Yesterday, the final carry is 15-8. And Ty Chandler was as good, if not better, than anything we've seen from Alexander Madison this year. Madison has been given week after week after week to be the guy, and for the most part, it hasn't happened. Is that soon to be a split? Where do you stand on this Vikings backfield?
Yeah, Madison ended up with a concussion, so we'll have to wait and see short term what that plays out as. Madison has been bad. Okay, he's kind of been Joe Mixon like. He's gotten a lot of work, hasn't really done anything. This team, if I'm not mistaken, Cam Akers has the rushing touchdown. Madison still doesn't, right?
Yeah.
Have a rushing score this year. We talked about this in the preseason. Madison is a zone runner playing in a power scheme. Okay, so that's not a fit stylistically for his skill set to the offense they're running. And he's, for the most part, it's kind of been running into a wall, right? There just hasn't been much. So, I think that Chandler is someone that, we have him as the number 2 guy on the running back grid over at fantasyguru.com. We talk about this all the time. You want to handcuff your running backs. If Madison misses this next game, which, guys get concussions, they often miss games now. Chandler's going to be a hot pickup this week. Hopefully you already had him. But I think that Chandler, certainly there's an opportunity for him to at least split the backfield, if not leak ahead of Madison, because he just hasn't done anything today.
On the other side, Derek Carr is suffering a concussion. Saints have a bye in week 11, so we'll have to check in on his status. Also a shoulder injury, it sounds like, with Carr. So Jameis Winston came in, and He was Jameis Winston, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, kind of the usual thing. Although he had a couple of really nice touchdowns. Vikings win at 27-19. So again, they've won 5 in a row. They're now 6-4. Moving elsewhere in the NFC North, the Green Bay Packers, they were on the road at Pittsburgh. Steelers win this game 23-19. And Ray, we were talking about the Cowboys backfield. We were talking about the Detroit backfield. We were talking about the Vikings backfield. Pittsburgh's backfield. This is not new. This has been a debate and a discussion all year. But yesterday against the Packers, whether you had Harris or you had Warren, it was good. Mm-hmm. Those guys both got work. Those guys both were successful. Both of them got in the end zone. My takeaway, Ray, is, okay, maybe this is more of a split than we would have expected a month and a half, 2 months ago. Maybe it's played out that way. And I'm starting to say that, Ray, because look at the play calling yesterday. The Steelers seem to have gotten to the point with Kenny Pickett of saying, you can't really win us games. We're not gonna hide you, but we're not gonna ask you to go out and win us games with your arm. 36 rushing plays by the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday to 24 passing plays. So that's 3-2. Let me just put it in perspective. Nobody in the NFL does that over the course of the season.
It's the other way around.
Yeah, nobody does the 3-2 rushing to passing over the course of the season. But the Steelers did it yesterday. And Ray, this team is doing things in a very unique fashion. They don't outgain you.
Ever.
Ever. For the season, I don't think they outscore you. Yet, lo and behold, as you look at the record, Ray, the Pittsburgh Steelers are 6-3. Mm-hmm. So maybe they're just going to go with this rushing heavy attack, which means Harris and Warren can both be fed in this offense. What do you think of my explanation there with the Steelers?
I think that Mike Tomlin's going to the Hall of Fame. I think he's an excellent head coach, and he gets his team ready and in position to win every week. I think Kenny Pickett is horrible. And I'm going to go a little further than you did. I think they're finally admitting we got to cover for this guy. We got to hide him. He's not good. He's not good. He doesn't do anything. He's just a guy. He should be a backup. He's not ready now to lead a winning football team. And I don't know if he ever will be, to be honest. I don't see it. I know everyone talks about fourth quarter comeback. He doesn't do anything. His goal is to not make a mistake, which to his credit, he didn't throw an interception yesterday. I think the backfield is how this team is going to win. I think they're going to play Falcons football. I think they're going to play Titans football. They're going to try to win 23-19 like they did yesterday. That's what we're doing, guys. Let's go.
Yeah.
So he's a game manager, which, makes us very – Deontay Johnson, who's, getting 12 targets a week, catches 1 pass. Mm-hmm. Like this is – so the backfield is the heartbeat of this offense. You look at the way they were utilized yesterday. They both played 33 snaps, the exact same amount. Warren ran 4 more routes, so they were almost utilized as in a passing game the same way. There was 1 carry difference between the two guys. That's how they're winning football games. So I think that were we right about Harris? Because we said, yeah, I get Harris. No. Were we wrong about Warren? I'm going to say yes. But the reason we were wrong about Warren is that he's way more involved than we anticipated because we thought the offense would do some things through the air, and it's pretty clear they just can't.
And to just build upon, how they're calling the game, their offense is not good. They're like bottom 6 or 7 in points. They're bottom 5 in yardage. Yet again, they're 6-3. So how do they do it? Well, lately it's the rushing attack. So I would assume they just continue to do this. And as long as you stay close, you can. If you build an early lead or you get the interceptions like this, you can do this. I look at their upcoming schedule and there's like bad teams and then good teams. Like they have a really rough final 3. Like the final 3 for the Steelers, home against Cincinnati, at Seattle, and at Baltimore. That's a really difficult final 3. Before that, though, they get Arizona, New England, and Indy, which are teams that you can bore us, with a 24-18 win. This week, they're at Cleveland. Like, Ray, that just screams AFC North 17-14. The Steelers. So I assume for the most part, most of these weeks, they're going to just run and run and run unless they're forced to play catch up, which they might be those final 3 weeks. But again, for a fantasy player, you might not even be playing those final 3 weeks. On the Packers side, Ray, there's not much here. It's another dead Christian Watson week. Jaden Reed's, I guess, the guy here is Christian Watson. I know he's involved, but the numbers suck for him this season.
Yeah, he held his hand up. The ball bounced off his hand, went for an interception in the end zone. I wrote this somewhere. I think it was actually I was prepping I don't even remember. I think I was prepping for this week already, week 11. I don't think that Jordan Love threw a single pass in the second half that wasn't off his back foot.
Really?
Like everything was, woo, I'm getting away from the rush. Woo. The offense is not good. It's not consistent. I think a large portion of that is Jordan Love has, I'm not going to say regress, but he has not stepped forward. He had a couple of good games to start the year, and then it's been a bunch of blah. There is a need in football to spread the ball around. It's very difficult unless you have a true alpha to throw 14 targets to one guy each game. Okay, I get that. But Reed 5, Musgrove 4, Wicks 4, Dubs 5, Watson 7. Like everyone's getting 5 targets. That's really rough. So there's no one that Love has a real connection with. There's no one that the play calling forces the ball to with the Packers. And when you do that, I don't think you have an answer. And when Reed, I would have laughed at this 6 weeks ago, but now it's like, yeah. So this is just a messy scenario. And Watson was a guy that we got right in the preseason. Jeff Mann said all preseason, don't. Everyone, looked the other direction. Oh, he scored all the 8 touchdowns in 4 games, or whatever the hell it was. He's done nothing since. He's done nothing for like 10 NFL football games, and it's not getting any better.
Yeah, and I know people are wanting to pile on Jordan Love. He can't do it. I'm not there yet. I mean, it's still his first season in effect. It's not great, but it's not dreadful. I mean, there are dreadful quarterbacks out there. I don't think Jordan Love's one of those guys. One of those dreadful quarterbacks, Ray, might be Mac Jones. We do have to talk about the game in Frankfurt. 10-6, and Mac Jones gets bit. I don't even care. Like we're a fantasy show. Who cares? I mean, Ramondre Stevenson, you play him. I don't think there's anybody else outside of maybe Hunter Henry that you think about in this offense.
Demario Douglas, he's emerging as a pass catcher. I mean, he's averaging 5 catches the last 4 games.
Yeah, I don't care. Okay. Demario, I can get that. I don't need guys like that. This offense is terrible. And I really don't care who starts in week 11 or week 12, I guess it would be because of the bye. Right. On the Indy sideline, Ray, though, the one takeaway is that the Zack Moss fun is over. I mean, we finally gotten to that point, I think, where Jonathan Taylor is being treated as the stud running back that he is with Indianapolis.
Yeah, and we said this at the start. It was very weird, the way the whole Jonathan Taylor thing played out this season. And then they get him back. They sign him to this massive contract. And what do? They slow play the crap out of him. Like, I guess they were really looking at year 3 of that contract. Like, they didn't want to throw him out there too aggressively. So they kept Moss involved. Moss is 5th in the NFL in rushing yards. As we said during the show, he's 5th in the NFL in rushing yards. He's not even part of the offense anymore. He's gone. Someone asked me, or multiple people have been asking me, like, what do you do with Moss? Well, this is hopefully the one league I have Taylor. I have both these guys. So if you have Taylor, Moss is a must-get/hold. Because if Taylor goes down, guess what? Zack Moss goes right back to getting 20 touches a week. Right now, it does not seem like this is the backfield like we see in some other areas. The Steelers we were just talking about where you can play both guys. The Lions where you can play both guys. You can't do that with the Colts. They've made the decision to turn the offense over to the guy that was one of the best in football before injuries, to the guy they paid like a superstar. So to your point, Zack Moss is a hold stash. He is certainly not a start any longer.
That game, pretty well a snooze fest. Not much different. Tampa and Tennessee. I mean, Ray, I guess Mike Evans had a good game. Again, we see Rachaad White do nothing on the ground, but he saves his day with a catch and a run. In Tennessee, I'll just point out it's played out exactly as we expected. Will Levis had that huge first game. Now he goes on the road, and there's nothing. I mean, he had 4 touchdown throws in that first game. He's got 0 in the last 2. Both teams are just boring, Ray. And, hey, there's a lot of boring teams in the NFL. And I don't think Tennessee is making the playoffs. Tampa might sneak in, but, Ray, boring teams. Is there anything we need to talk about here?
Well, just Derrick Henry. 24 yards on 11 carries. Now, part of this is they didn't have the success in the air, right? The Bucs can be solid against the run, so you need to be able to push them through the air, which they should have been able to do, weren't able to do. Levis was under duress a lot of the game. Derrick Henry, disastrous effort. Derrick Henry still someone you fire up every week. Derrick Henry still looking at 15 to 20 touches and 80 yards and a touchdown as a kind of baseline of what can happen. Didn't happen yesterday, and it was terribly disappointing.
Yeah. Not much different than Saquon Barkley for me. Like most games, you have to start him, but I don't know if you're expecting much. But they have that ability to tear off a huge run. And so you have to start them. And they can have those ceiling games, but not really counting on it with guys like Barkley and Henry. Moving along, let's see. We've got the return of Kyler Murray. That was a little more exciting. Now, I'll say this, Ray. Kyler Murray looked like Kyler Murray, which is good and bad. It's good because in less than a year, he's returned and he was able to scamper around and, move in the pocket. You wouldn't know he was coming off. He looked good. So he's healthy. That's great. But he also looked like Kyler Murray in the fact that he still misses wide open receivers. His interception was probably the worst pick. Well, no, Mac Jones had the worst pick today. Okay. But Kyler Murray's was really bad. He threw behind his receiver by like 3 yards. And Ray, I expect rustiness. Okay, I'm not calling the guy out for his first game back. The problem is I don't think it changes 6 weeks from now. But they won the game, and that's what matters. And they felt like they had a chance that entire game. So it was good to see him back. I know people were firing him up as their quarterback, and I thought he looked pretty well like Kyler Murray should look.
Yeah, I think that I saw what I needed to see to feel confident moving forward. Okay, it's Kyler Murray. Now let's just assess the matchup versus worrying about rustiness or whatever. He ran around. He looked spry, all those kind of things. My takeaway beyond the obvious, which again is Kyler Murray's now, we're okay to be talking about starting him each week. What the hell is going on? You have a number 1 draft pick who you paid $230 million to. You're down at the 1 yard line, and here comes Clayton Tune. Twice. Like,
I'll tell you, Ray. This QB sneak thing, the tush push, it's been proven highly successful. So other teams are trying it. I will stand up for the Cardinals here, Ray. I don't understand why teams are throwing Jalen Hurts into a pile of 2,000 pounds of people falling. I don't get it. So maybe Arizona is more on my side of like, let's just throw away Clayton Tune's career instead of Kyler Murray. Let's sacrifice Clayton Tune to the offensive and defensive lines instead of Kyler Murray, maybe.
Well, but think about it. Let's take Mike Trout out in the 9th inning. Let's bench Steph Curry with the game on the line when we need to make a 3-pointer. Let's take out Connor McDavid. Let's not have him on the ice. Like, who does this? You paid this guy $230 million to lead your franchise in some flunky. They need to outlaw the tush push. It's an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment. People can get hurt. It's dumb. The referees have no idea where the player is under the pile. They have no clue. It's just like you said, 14 people laying on top
of football. It's not rugby. And all that is rugby. That's what it is. That's
and they don't know where the ball is. They refuse to put a chip in the football. They have no idea. You watch replays. There's 42 legs.
By the way, Tune almost fumbled at the goal line too on that success.
Yeah. And I mean, I just and I tweeted this out last night at the Ray Flowers. I tweeted out, I said, "Welcome to 2023 football, where it's let's push the guy's ass." Versus actually having our, leader of our franchise on the football field when we need a touchdown. Would Joe Montana ever be taken out? Johnny Unitas, Dan Marino, any of these guys ever allow themselves to be taken out? There is no way in hell they would come off the football field. Now it's just a common occurrence.
Yeah. We'll see if Marquise Brown can get things figured out. James Conner was back, 17 carries, so looked pretty good there. Falcons, hey, give it up to Arthur Smith, 22 carries for Bijan Robinson. That's a career high. First time since week 2 that he's had more than 14 carries. We did still see Tyler Algier late, so they can't completely remove themselves. And Jonnu Smith, just to let you know, looked like Jonnu Smith. 1 catch, 1 yard.
Right when everyone played him.
Yeah, right when everybody played him. Washington, Seattle. This was a fun one, 29-26, and Geno Smith had some big moments. Tyler Lockett, some big catches. Lockett's kind of been better than DK Metcalf, by the way, this year. Kenneth Walker, big catch and run. Brian Robinson, big catch and run. Sam Howell. Ray, this one probably deserves a little bit of discussion because we've been talking about bad quarterbacks and not getting results. Sam Howell, Ray, because of the way this offense runs, they throw and throw and throw. He had 44 passes yesterday, and I don't see that changing. And Ray, the 44, 312 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. I can't see the Commanders changing this the rest of the way. I'm not going to sit here and say he's a QB1 purely because of quantity. Some people are making that argument. I mean, hell, he's going to throw 40 times every week. But he's moved up in my estimation as a very certifiable QB2, I think, for people this season.
I don't know if it was my TV, by the way, but watching this game, did it look like the Commanders were highlighted and Seattle was wearing like black uniforms? Like there was such a difference. Like I was like, watching my screen is like no, my screen is fine. It was an odd visual. I think the answer to your question is we in the fantasy game can have results that don't match the real world. I don't think Sam Howell's very good. I haven't been overly impressed by Sam Howell. But directly to your point, when you're throwing the ball 44 times a week and you're not running the football, and you start trading away, 2 of your 4 defensive line guys, and then you start worrying about what do we got, on that side of the football, we're gonna have to play catch up, we're gonna have to stay in game. It's hard not to look at him and say he can be a QB1. Now, the problem with that is, as an analyst, when I break down the pieces of his game, even when I look at a matchup, it's like he doesn't grade out as a 10. He doesn't come out as the guy that, you got to have him out there. So I think that it's an uneasy quarterback 1, which is what he's been. And he likely will continue it, to your point, if he keeps throwing it 40-plus times a week.
Yeah. Big win for the Seahawks. They now go to 6-3 there. As noted, nothing outlandish. I mean, Bijan Robinson, 6 catches, 119 and a score. He has not been that guy all season. So that was kind of a one-off there. They still don't run him. And again, this goes back to the play calling. They refuse to run Bijan Robinson, which I just think is weird. They don't use him. But yesterday they used him in the passing game. Finally, Jets and the Raiders, Ray. 16-12, a lot of field goals here. Greg Zuerlein's a hero, I guess. More or less, hey, give it up to Garrett Wilson. He gets yardage. The Jets can't seem to understand that Breece Hall receiving is probably a better bet than Breece Hall running right now. The Raiders win this game, Ray. They're 2-0 under Antonio Pierce. Bravo to them. 27 carries for Josh Jacobs. That's good. Over 100 yards for the first time this year. Still not getting much of anything from Davante Adams. It started out good on Sunday, Ray, and then nothing in the second half for Adams and the Raiders.
Yeah, and they've kind of battened down the hatches, if you will, the Raiders, right? We're going to run the ball. We're going to use a rookie quarterback where is he at in his development? Well, he's very early. We're not going to have a lot of success through the air. 1 week it's Jacoby Myers. The next week it's Davante Adams getting 8 targets, 10 targets, 12 targets. We know that Jacobs is going to dominate touches and snaps and all of that, but this passing attack is very much stuck in the mud. But the Raiders are 5-5, and they're trying to change the culture, and they beat a team that is not very good. If people didn't see the game, by the way, Zack Wilson had a rushing touchdown where he was ruled out at the 2-yard line or 3-yard line because he stepped on the sideline. Yeah. Breece Hall had a touchdown. They got called back on a penalty. So there was potential for there to be some offensive excitement for the Jets, but in the end, they lost 16-12 to a Raiders team that doesn't have much to get excited about in the fantasy game.
We got any more primetime Jets games?
Oh, this year? I hope they don't flex anything, Kyle.
Aaron Rodgers said he will be back in mid-December. That's what he said. So Ray, you mentioned flex. They'll probably flex something. Oh, they've got the Black Friday game. The first ever Black Friday. Now, it's the only game. It's like 3:00 in the afternoon, so that's prime. Oh, they are listed Thursday Night Football, Ray, December 28th at Cleveland. And again, if Aaron Rodgers is back, why would so there's more Jets to come, people. You're not finished with them. Going to get to Ryan Clifford. Real quickly, I'll say this. In the chat room, we were talking about the Tush Push, and somebody disagrees with us. A bunch of crying you guys have outlawing the Tush Push. Defenses should just stop it. I would ask you this. If you ran the Tush Push on first down, second down, and third down, would you get a first down? Would you even get to 3rd and 5 or 4th? You wouldn't. Defenses are stopping it. Defenses are giving up like a yard per play. If I told you you would run a play and you're going to get stopped a yard, maybe a yard and a half, would you say that's a successful play? Would you disagree that defenses are failing to stop it? It's just a dumb play. That's the problem. They are stopping it, Ray. If you tried to run that, if you ran it on 2nd and 6, do you think it would work? No, it's not a play. It's purely a force rugby brawl. That's all it is.
Yeah, it's like a scrum but in hockey where everyone just crashes the net and we try to have the puck just slide underneath as everyone's running into the goalie. It's not a real play. It's a bunch of dudes. And I think the biggest problem is what I said. On at least half of these plays, if not more, you have no idea where the quarterback is down. You have no idea. You don't know if he's in the end zone or not. So it's taking advantage of the way the rules are. There's no other sport like this. We saw who did it yesterday in the middle of the field. I'm trying to remember. There was a play where a running back, geez, I'm drawing a blank. He got like an extra 14 yards. I think it was in the Tampa game because they just kept running into him. But it's not.
Oh, they kept pushing him down the field.
Am I right?
Hockenson gained like an extra 10 yards on one of those plays.
Yeah, it's just, it's supposed to be a battle between the guy with the football and the guy trying to stop him.
Yeah.
Not which 350-pound guy pushing which 350-pound guy. That's what they do in the offensive line. It's not, it's a scrum, and it's bad looking. It's dangerous for the players, and the referees, to my point, which is number one, have no idea where the ball is in that pile, so they can't even rule properly on what occurred.
Okay, we have gone game by game on Sunday. Let us now get you set for Monday Night Football. Ryan Clifford is with us, back hanging out to talk some DFS showdown. Denver at Buffalo tonight. I complained even last week, Ryan, that like the Thursday night, the Sunday morning, the Sunday night, and the Monday night were pretty awful matchups. The first three have all played according to expectations. They've been terrible. Is tonight going to be terrible, or can the Broncos and the Bills maybe give us some fireworks tonight?
Yeah, it's going to be hard to match the boringness of the last three. Sunday morning, throw that in there. That was pretty terrible as well. I think the game tonight will have a little bit more excitement than those three.
Ryan, obviously Josh Allen's the top guy in terms of salaries, the top guy in terms of expectations. Is he a must start? Is it like, hey, I know everyone's going to do it, but I just got to do it here in the showdown slate? Or would you potentially go in a different direction and not play Josh Allen this evening?
No, I think he's got to be in your lineup. He's been in 8 straight showdown lineups, 8 straight games. I think 3 of those have been captained. So as bad as the Bills' offense has looked here the past few weeks, Josh Allen is the one guy that's still producing. You look at the dual threat ability. That's what we're always looking for in showdown as far as our captain options go, and Allen definitely has that. On the other side of the field, you look at Russell Wilson. He's been an optimal captain just once in showdown games, and I think his last 37 games since the start of 2021. So he's out. Look at the Bills. They're choosing. Seems like they're not running the ball at all. Should be noted, Denver is allowing the most rushing yards per game. Of course, game script in Broncos games has factored into that. But, James Cook's workload is just getting stripped away, it seems, week by week. I think he was only on the field 55% of the offensive snaps last week. So you can throw the Bills running backs out as if you're looking for a captain. So, it really, to me, comes down to Allen, maybe Stephon Diggs. And then on the other side of the field, don't forget about the Broncos wide receivers there. The Bills are down, I think, the 3 of their starting quarterbacks. So decimated Bills defense on the other side.
Ryan, let's talk a little bit more about Stephon Diggs over on DraftKings. Josh Allen's 18,900. Diggs is next up at 18,000. We had a lot of people on Sunday worried about playing Jamar Chase with his back issue. Maybe it wasn't spectacular, but he had the long touchdown, 100 plus yards, that kind of thing. We have Stephon Diggs with a back issue as well. He's fully expected to play. He says he's fine. That's lingering maybe in some people's minds. Is Diggs a must-go? Because he and Allen have made sweet music for the majority of this season.
They have. I think you got to be a little bit more cautious on Diggs just because, the Bills transitioning to that spread offense once Dawson Knox went down. So you've got Diggs, you've got Gabe Davis, Khalil Shakir, and Dalton Kincaid pretty much, on the field for almost all of the routes the Bills are running. So, I think the ball can be spread around in Buffalo. We saw it a couple weeks ago where Gabe Davis and Kincaid went off and Diggs had a pretty quiet day. So especially, you mentioned the injury report issues earlier this week with Diggs. I think you should be a little cautious with him.
You brought up the name Gabe Davis. He is one of 7 players available in the showdown tonight that if you captain him, he would be in double digits, 10,000 or above. He'd cost that. Is he a sucker bet? Because Ryan, it is like you look at his game by game. Last week was 0 catches. And if he captained a guy with 0 catches last week, you're still paying over $10,000 to get a hold of Gabe Davis. I would guess like in a showdown, he's like your biggest boomer bust. If you got him in your lineup, if you win money, it's because Gabe Davis did something. But if you lose money in your cash game lineup or whatever it is, it's because Gabe Davis did nothing. Where do you stand on him? Is he more trouble than he's worth?
Yeah, I think so. I think you nailed it with boom or bust. If you're in a large field GPP, maybe you're looking at a guy like Gabe Davis. The Bills' offense has been frustrating. I saw a breakdown this past week where they're literally just running the same play, like almost every time that Allen drops back. And that what Gabe Davis is doing more often than not is just running go route to the end zone. And you talk about boom or bust. If he catches some of those balls, he's going to have a monster fantasy game. But, more often than not, we're going to see, one catch or two catches. Maybe he gets a touchdown in there. But, yeah, I'd steer clear of Davis for the time being until the Bills' offense can get figured out, I think.
All right, Ryan. Is it time? And by that, I mean, is it time that Roy Kent finally emerges? Javonte Williams had 18 touches 2 games ago. Last time out, I think he had like 30 touches. It seemed like he's finally taken over the backfield. Talk to us about Javonte Williams tonight. He's at 7,200. What are we doing with Javonte Williams on the Monday night slate?
Yeah, I like him a lot here. As bad as Denver's offense has been, they're second in the league in yards per attempt rushing. Javonte Williams has been getting more and more work as the weeks go on. Bill's defense has just been obliterated by injuries. So I think tonight is a good night for Williams. If Denver's smart, they'll lean on him heavily here to start and try to keep Allen off the field as much as they can. So I think you nailed it. As a side note, Roy Kent, man, I had to search Twitter. One day I heard people on the radio show talking about Roy Kent. I had to search Twitter to figure out what the heck that was. So I figured it out, but you'll have to explain that to me off the air sometime.
I was thinking before I looked at the salaries here, I was like, Khalil Shakir, that'd be a decent play, kind of underrated. And 4,400 though. I was that seemed pricey. Like that's no man's land. You're looking for guys like 1,000 or below, maybe 2K. 4,400. I was surprised how high that tag was on Shakir.
Yeah, for sure. And the thing is, I think he'll still get a lot of ownership tonight, just because the way you're building lineups, you're throwing in the Diggs and the Allens and Wilson on the other side, and maybe some of the Denver receivers. You need some of these cheaper plays. Shakir is on the field a whole lot now. In Buffalo, he's become one of Allen's favorite receivers the past couple of weeks. So definitely don't sleep on Shakir. If it were up to me, though, you look on the other side, Denver's offense. Denver's a team that's passing the ball a whole lot because they're trailing a whole lot. You've got a guy like Little Jordan Humphrey or Traquan Smith, both minimum price on DraftKings. Going to see probably the same amount of work as Shakir. So I think I'd pivot to one of those guys if it were up to me.
47.5 is the game total, at least where I'm looking at. That's actually good in today's NFL. We see a lot of games 36, 38, 40. Are we getting there tonight? What's your model say?
I've got it going under. I do like the Bills a little bit more. Or I like the Broncos a little bit less. Okay. So, yeah, I am going under. I've got it around 42, I think.
8:15 tonight. Bills hosting the Denver Broncos. For more on this showdown slate, we invite you to head over to fantasyguru.com. Ryan, as always, has the showdown write-up, does one for Sunday, does one for Thursday, and, of course, we like to visit with him on a Monday leading up to a little MNF. Okay, Ryan, appreciate it, man. I know you'll be hanging out in Discord a bit later, but thanks for the help here this afternoon, okay?
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Our man Ryan Clifford hanging out with us, leading up to some Monday Night Football. What do you think, Ray? Over, under 47.5 between these two tonight?
Under. We'll get in the 40s, but it'll be under. What do you think?
Denver's a pretty bad defense. I know they haven't been like Miami bad, right. 70 points to the Dolphins. But the Bills haven't been straight. I'm going to say Bills win this pretty easily, like a 28-10 win, which I guess would be way under. I think the Bills offense will be fine. They'll handle their duties. I just don't think Denver gets really anything. Even against the Bills, I think Monday Night Football, their defense will be a bit better. Give me the Bills to cover, and I'll take the under as well. So that is where I will land. Okay, we have landed near the conclusion. Yeah, the conclusion of everything we do on Fantasy Sports Daily. Tomorrow, we're back at you, 11 a.m. Eastern. We will be live on YouTube, live on X, live on Facebook. Ray, we will be tape delayed. Is that fair to say? On your podcasting listener spot, whatever, Spotify, Apple, Ray does all this. If you haven't
Pandora.
noticed, Ray is the guy that handles all the tech here. Because Ray, this is like all I know, a microphone. I know how to plug that in, and I know how to talk. You're lucky enough you get to see me on camera.
Right.
But everything else is Ray. He handles all that cool, fancy, smanchy stuff.
I appreciate that. Yeah, we have the show obviously on YouTube. It's stored there, youtube.com/@Elite+Network. You can always find it live or, after the fact. We also post the show over at fantasyguru.com, so you can just check it out the website if you're subscribing there. We're also on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Google Podcasts. You can find the links to all those on the YouTube page or just search Fantasy Sports Daily. Don't forget to go to the website. Use the promo code FSD20 over at fantasyguru.com. You get a discount on everything, like literally everything. You get 20% off, FSD20. We've got the all-in MVP package, which includes college football, basketball, hockey, golf, racing, all those things. That's on like a 50% discount right now there as well. So use that promo code FSD20 if you like what you see here. You can also find us, I don't think we mentioned, Cal, on Facebook as well.
Oh, I mentioned Facebook, right? I would never forget Facebook.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely. Speaking of hoops, which you touched on, tomorrow I think Justin Finsterman's going to join us, and we got a not huge, it's a very manageable but big DFS slate for Tuesday. So we'll take a preview at that. Justin and his crew, they handle the cheat sheets and the DFS write-ups for NBA each and every night. And then on Tuesdays, most Tuesdays, we check in with Justin. So that is the plan for tomorrow. Monday Night Football thoughts, maybe some waiver wire discussion as you go into bidding. That is the plan for tomorrow. So we'll get live at 11 a.m. Eastern, and then you can find us about 30 minutes after we sign off on Tuesday. And for today, if you want to say, hey, you need to listen to this, tell your friends about us. They can subscribe, and it'll be right there and good to go. Okay, Ray, good stuff today. A pleasure as always, and we'll do it again tomorrow.
Looking forward to it, Kyle, as always.
Kyle Elfrink here. This has been Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by fantasyguru.com.